I'm a great fan of John Henry Newman. I'll quote him again. He uses this great line that I think he took from Francis de Sales, I'm not sure. In Latin it says, cor ad cor loquitur. Heart speaks to heart. It was his motto. The notion that two human beings come together and somehow their hearts communicate with one another. Something is going much deeper. So in Spanish, when Francis says encuentro, he means two human beings coming together, somehow discovering one another's humanity, engaging in that humanity, and affirming one another's humanity. That's what he means. So it's not just go out and shake hands with people. He means go and encounter people. I think it's what we mean by solidarity when we take it apart. It's just that word isn't one that a lot of our people know the meaning of. You do in this room, but a lot of our people don't. And so I think encounter becomes a very helpful word for us. He has a wonderful description of what he means by an encounter. And that too should be on your sheet. This is from an address he gave in Buenos Aires in the Feast of St. Cajetan, I think is how it's labeled, 2013. Just so you know, so in Argentina, the Feast of St. Cajetan is a big deal. And you go to Buenos Aires, and from what I understand, I've never been there, typically you're talking about lines of people coming to the cathedral to honor the statue of St. Cajetan. And we're talking about, from what I understand, lines that are 10 to 12 blocks long, and you could be up to a 10-hour wait to get to St. Cajetan. But then at the end, everyone is gathered, and then at that time, Archbishop Bergoglio can give a talk. Well, in 2013, he'd been made Pope, so he actually did it via Skype on a big screen. He still spoke. And the theme in 2013 was, with Jesus in St. Cajetan, we encounter the neediest. We encounter encuentro. He's going to use this word, culture of encounter. And here's where I think you get a vision of what he means by it. So let's look at this one again. It says, this theme, encounter, speaks of the people most in need. And one other thing I should point out to you. In Latin America, processions are huge. Popular parties are gigantic. But what's typical about them is the people who are begging all along. They know that there's going to be this long procession, and so they're begging the whole way. So you just got a picture that you're walking with all these people, you're praying, you're singing, and there are beggars all along the road. So that's what you need to have in your mind. Okay? He says, this theme speaks of the people most in need, of those who need us to give them a hand, who need us to look at them with love, to share their pain or their anxieties and their problems. What's important is that we don't just look at them from afar or help from afar. No, we must reach out to them. This is being Christian. This is what Jesus taught us, to reach out to the needy. Like Jesus, who always reached out to the people, he went to meet them, reaching out to those most in need. And sometimes I ask people, do you give alms? And they say, yes, Father. And when you give alms, do you look into the eyes of the people you are giving alms to? Picture again, they're all along the sides here. I don't know. I don't really think about it. Then you have not reached out to those people. You just tossed them some charity and went away. When you give alms, do you touch their hands or just toss the coins? Nice little biblical imagery there, huh? No, I toss them the coins. Then you have not touched them. And if you have not touched them, you have not reached out to them. What Jesus teaches us, first of all, is to reach out to each other, and in reaching out, to help one another. We must be able to reach out to each other. We must build, create, and construct a culture of encounter. So the response to a culture of exclusion is a culture of encounter. And note, it starts very one-on-one. And this is something, by the way, we know in our work. Yes, I deal with policy all the time these days, largely with policy questions. But real work gets done even in DC one-on-one. It's all relational. It's really relational. And the church has always said, whether we're doing charity, whether we're doing evangelization, whether we're doing education, human interaction matters. Because that's when you can have an encuentro, a genuine encounter, in which a human being's dignity is fundamentally affirmed. Who they are is fundamentally affirmed. I'd like to share a story with you about this in charity work. So I ran Catholic Charities in Denver. Catholic Charities in Denver, among the many things we did, we ran 5 homeless shelters. One of the homeless shelters is called the Samaritan House. And it was the biggest homeless shelter west of Mississippi. I think it was the first one that was built ever to be a dedicated homeless shelter. It was built to be a shelter. Now, for those of you in the business, you know this, but maybe for those of you who aren't, a homeless shelter in a typical charity setting is way more than a cot and a place for food. We've got programming running through it. I mean, it's its own ecosystem. And in the Samaritan House, we got 350 people a night, families and single and children. About 80 of them would have been children, average age about 5. Okay? So you've got, in a building, 330 people in a given night, and a whole system. You've got to feed these people. They're in different parts of the building. You've got a clothing room. You've got all kinds of programming going on. So it's a very sophisticated thing to run a homeless shelter. It's very humbling when I first encountered this kid. But you're always understaffed because you're trying to make ends meet. So typically at Samaritan House at night, you lock all the doors. You have all kinds of rules. Rules are key to governing, and they're for good. They're good to have these rules. And so you lock the doors at a certain time, no one comes in or out. But on a given night, there's only 2 staff in this room of 350 people. Okay? In this building of 350 people. And things can go wrong. So it's always just a little dicey being on night staff. So we usually have about 2 people on staff. And one night, and this is a priest, a Capuchin priest who was there for many, many years, shared a story that made it touch me deeply. He was sharing a story about one of his first nights when he was overseeing Samaritan House at night. He's nervous. He's there. The only other person working with him is a volunteer who's pretty new. And they're sitting, they lock the doors. Okay, the men are down there, the families are all set there, the children are there, plumbing works as far as we can tell, the lights are on, doors are locked. Good. It's a freezing cold night. It's one of these Denver snowstorms. It's really cold, it's icy, so it's packed. Samaritan House is always full in the winter. People coming in to get warm. So it's about 1 o'clock in the morning. And you sit at the front desk. And it's 1 o'clock in the morning, you hear a knock on the door. The door opens, and he goes to the door, and he's looking, he's thinking, oh, what do I do? No one's supposed to be knocking, no one's locked. He goes out, he opens the door, and in front of him is a woman who's clearly been on the street. Looks like someone who's been on the streets in downtown Denver. She's swamped in scarves and extra coats and a hat. And, she's just shivering, walking there. And he says, she looks like someone you typically see on the street, except you look down and you look at her feet and you realize she hasn't had any shoes on. And so she's clearly been walking the streets for hours with no shoes on. So her feet are wet and they're bloody. You probably can't feel them. She's numb. And she's just knocking. And she's not quite completely there, he thinks, just because she's so cold. And he called her Mary. He eventually learned her name. And he said, so he welcomes her in. And he put her on the blue bench. The blue benches at Samaritan House, so when the first thing you do when he goes around, you sit on the blue bench because that's when they figure out what to do. Okay? So he does the one thing he knows. Okay, I'm new here. I'm not sure what to do. Put her on the blue bench. And he starts asking all the kinds of questions that someone should ask, I would think. Like, okay, what do I do? Where's the nearest hospital? Who's open? Which one can I call? I know there's a list somewhere here. She needs shoes. We locked the clothing room. So I'm not allowed to open the clothing room. Can I break the rules and open the clothing room? What do I do? There's no one to call. It's 1 o'clock. The supervisor's asleep. What do I... And he starts worrying about all these things, and there's Mary just sitting on his bench. And he says, while he's doing that, he said the assistant with him had gotten up, gone into the other room, gotten a bowl, filled it with warm water, put a towel over his shoulder, came out, knelt in front of Mary, and started washing her feet. That did not solve all of Mary's problems. But probably for the first time in a very long time, Mary experienced her own human dignity. She experienced what it meant to be a human being with dignity. And they eventually solved all those problems. You have to do that. But a human being is not simply a technical problem to be solved. A human being's dignity needs to be affirmed. Cardinal George tells a story of organizing laborers in Washington State when he was out there. He said it was amazing to him when some of the immigrant laborers came to him and said, we want to form a union, Cardinal. And he asked them, well, what are the problems you want to address with your union? And he knew them. Wages, not getting paid, hours. He said, but it was funny because the first thing that was said to him was, their first complaint was not, we don't get paid enough. So their first complaint was they don't respect us. They don't respect us. They don't treat us as a human being. So the notion of building a culture of encuentro is the notion of somehow re-infusing in everything we do, evangelization, education, social ministry, running the chancery, providing services, whatever we do, doing catechesis, teaching, to have an inkling that the dignity of the person with whom you are relating is affirmed. And we simply have to make time for it. We can't make excuses. It's so easy to be taken up with the things we have to get done. It's so easy. I do it as a dad. I come home, long day at work, I'm exhausted. Get in from DC, 10 things have gone wrong. You talk to the politicians who once again aren't going to do anything about something. You get in the house, and when I get home, I just turn into a machine, right? With 7 kids, you got to run a pretty tight ship. And you're getting home, and it's like, all right, there are exactly 1.75 hours before bedtime. There are 6 things that must be accomplished. For 7 children, 42, task, division of labor, everything. And I just go into function mode. And I pull out my Captain Von Trapp whistle, and they start singing. And so you get them in line, and they start marching. And I am like, all right, you in the shower, you bathe that one, I'll get the dishes done. Which one are you doing? Your homework? You gonna finish that? Okay, this. Start getting it done. And then inevitably, and I'm just racing for that bowl of ice cream, because that's my consolation, except they're not. Otherwise, you're racing to the bowl of ice cream. Just know that they're all in bed. I'm going to have ice cream. Nod to my wife. Yes, honey. Okay, good night. And inevitably, my 4-year-old or my 7-year-old, whatever point in my life I'm at, says to me, "But Daddy, you promised to read a book." Okay, I did. And I'll honor that. It's on the list. So we sit down, and you put down, you open up that book, and you think, you got to get this done. I check out class. So you open up the book, and it's like 15 pages, and you're thinking, she can't read. I can do this. And it's, Mousy makes a cake. And you open it up, and you read the first page. Mousy wanted to make a cake. She started looking for ingredients. And it was delicious. Okay, into that. I'll never have passing 5 minutes with my daughter ever again. And was it an encounter? Or was it a task? You can live your life as an encounter. You can do it without adding much time. Even at a cost time, but it's how you live. It's interesting to me that Mother Teresa, when asked once, what can I do to build a more just world? She was asked this all the time. And her response was, go home and love your family. Go home and love your family. It starts at home. Because if you get it right there, you're going to get it right in all these other places. It doesn't stop there. That's not what I'm saying. Of course not. I wouldn't do what I do for a living. It stops there. But it starts there. You need to build a culture of encounter. So part 3. How do we do that? How do we do that? How do we create encounter? How do we live encounter? Pope Francis uses this term that he took from that document, again, that I mentioned before, if I see them, of missionary disciples. The notion of missionary disciples. He says we have to become missionary disciples. And there's a way he describes it in a number of ways. But I'm just going to give you some of the components of it for the sake of time. First, what it's not. Catholic social teaching and living a life of encounter is not an ideology. It's not a set of principles simply that we go around and apply to things. It's a relationship. It's about getting relationships right. We live in an age of ideology. Frankly, we live in an age of ideology reduced to stupid marketing slogans by the cooperation between big money, big business, big marketing, and politicians. But we live in a slogan age of ideologies. That's not at all what we're about. And we can't fall into that. Every pope of the last 3 has warned against thinking of the Catholic faith as an ideology. Second, in any of our work, education, evangelization, social ministry, if you don't fundamentally see that what you're doing is affirming a human being, it's easy to slip into a certain kind of anger, resentment, or discouragement. It is easy to be discouraged in D.C. It is easy to be discouraged in charitable work. Really? The numbers in our lines for homeless are not going down despite all the effort we're doing? Really? We can't get a law passed that would change this? Really? No matter how many times Jesus is presented as love, when I try to tell someone that, they just tell me, get your church with your stupid rules out of my face? Really? No matter how many times I work with little Johnny or Sally to understand their math problem or understand who Jesus is, they don't pay attention, they still get it wrong? Really? I've got to deal with parents of these kids who have more of a problem that they're learning than they are? Really? I've got to deal with the bureaucracy in the church that seems to never be able to get something done quickly enough, and all I want to do is do this one thing? It's so easy for us when we simply think of life as a set of tasks to be accomplished in human beings as projects to get discouraged. And Quinto is the antidote to that. Because no matter what we're doing at any given moment, if there's another human being in the room, we can live in front of them. We can affirm their human being. And this has value. Infinite value. Because the human being who's sitting across from us, standing across from us, arguing at us, maybe criticizing us, is in fact made in the image of God and destined for an eternal destiny. They will outlast the stars. And that matters. It also helps us to not reduce everything to technical solutions. That's a temptation of the modern world. We think everything can be solved through technique. If we just get the technique right. Don't get me wrong, technique's essential, and we're deeply grateful to the sciences, both the mechanical sciences as well as the social sciences. They're not perfect, but they really help us understand the way human beings relate. But everything isn't a technical problem. It's a relational one, and if we get that right, we will avoid some of the pitfalls that come from these other things. So how do we live encounter? Number one, we live encounter, Pope Francis tells us in various places, by first making sure we are encountering Christ regularly in the sacraments, in the Word of God. Benedict XVI says, even in the study of Catholic theology, for those of us who are workers in the vineyard, and in the other. In the other. We need to be encountering Christ. St. John Chrysostom had this wonderful line. He's known as the golden-tongued preacher, one of the church fathers, 4th century. St. John Chrysostom was famous for his preaching. He was bishop and he was preaching, and I won't give you the scenario, but anyway, so Chrysostom is teaching. As bishop, he'd be looking at his congregation, and he'd be preaching from his chair next to the altar. And he says to his congregation in one of his sermons, you honor this altar, and rightly, because on it our Lord himself comes and is among us. And so you show it honor. Because our Lord is right there. But then you go out into the streets, and there, the poor around you are also altars. But you walk right by them. You have to honor God on all his altars. This is Mother Teresa. I can't see Christ in the other unless I see Christ in the Eucharist. I can't see Christ in the Eucharist unless I see Christ in the other. They give her sisters a hard time. You're trying to help poverty. Why do you take so much time in prayer? Because I want to recognize Christ there, so I recognize him out there. So, encountering Christ in the sacrament, encountering Christ in the Word of God, and encountering Christ in the other. They're not either ors. They're not in competition with one another. They all go together. Another lesson he has for us, Pope Francis, the one we're thinking about. He says, in order to live encounter, we also need to be free of some of our own attachments. And this is interesting. And what he means here is to stuff. He's particularly thinking about the first world. He's thinking about everybody. He's saying, in order to live true encounter, you have to be detached. You have to have room for others. And that means being detached, and he's very clear about this, from stuff. You need to live a more simple life. And remember, he gave this, he was speaking about this in his, World Day of Peace message, 2014. He makes this point. He says, there's another form of promoting fraternity, and thus defeating poverty, which must be the basis of all the others. It is detachment from things. of those who choose to live a sober and essential lifestyle, of those who by sharing their own wealth thus manage to experience fraternal communion with others. This is fundamental for following Jesus Christ and being truly Christian. Detachment, getting rid of stuff. So this is the point where you go, I really hope he's going to qualify this and say, this is what I'm saying to priests. Or nuns, that's fine with me too. Go ahead and say it to nuns. Deacons, yeah, get the deacons. They need to hear this. And he delivered it, if you read the speech, he basically goes through, this is not just for those who take a vow of poverty. This is not just for those who take a vow of celibacy. This is not just for those who are religious life. This is not just those who take religious vows. This is not just, and he goes down and down the list, and everybody's implicated. Nobody escapes. And you think, dang, why did I read this? But it's real. We do live in tremendous wealth. And just tremendous stuff. Every human being is bombarded with, according to one survey, over 3,000 discrete advertising images per day in a typical day. 3,000 times a day you're told you need something to buy something. And we think this doesn't affect us. Come on. Of course it affects us. We need to live simplicity. We need to be detached. Because there's some truth. This is just scripturally true. This is Christ. This is the teaching of the church. We need room in our hearts to see Christ in that. We need space for that. And stuff can get in the way of that. This is not a condemnation of wealth. This is not a saying everyone has to think about poverty. Francis didn't say that. We need freedom. Who's the most free person in the world? The one who's attached to nothing, who can do without anything. You know, back in the day when it was big for me at this age, I don't even remember, but you know, it was big. Do you remember the big Mother Teresa versus Princess Di kind of dialogue? Who helps the foreign war, etc., that kind of thing. There was all this marriage, and Princess Di was everywhere. But I remember hearing a sermon once where someone said, do you ever think that Mother Teresa ever looked at Princess Di and thought, man, that is a great dress. I wish I had a dress just like that. Who's more free? Who's more free? Mother Teresa was as free as you get because there's nothing she's attached to except her people. Whenever they ask Mother Teresa, what do you think? What do you really need? What will make this? They're looking for some deep, profound answer. She'd say things like, I need money. Give me your money. Because I got to take care of my people. Detachment. That's serious, so I think we need to think about it. It speaks to the environment thing. It speaks to our friendship thing. It speaks to what we teach our children. It speaks to so many things. I think part of the anxiety in the first world right now around economics is driven by our attachment to stuff. We're so afraid of losing stuff. Finally, and this is the last quote on the page, I'll get to it in a minute. I think we have to realize that living a life of encounter costs us. Love comes with a cost. And if we don't acknowledge that, we don't realize how hard love is. And we can sometimes fail in it or get discouraged by it. I know this with young people. He's talking to young people about serving the poor and serving justice. He's really excited. They've heard a lot about it. College student volunteering is way up. Then you take them on a trip to South America. They go to South America for a week, and it changes their life. And it's awesome. And these are good trips, by the way. They're very important for young people. They're not very helpful for people there because you can't get a lot of time in a week with a bunch of high school students or different college students. But anyway, they go and they're like, wow, I had no idea there were poor people, right? Especially from the suburbs. And you take them down there and you show them they have this experience, and they get this very romanticized notion of what it means to love people. It's going and playing soccer with kids in the village in the Peruvian Andes. And it's good that they have that experience. It opens their heart, it opens to Christ, it opens to justice, it opens all kinds of realities they don't otherwise see. We want to keep doing these. They're very good tools. But it can also give them a romantic version. Then when they really start serving, loving, preaching, teaching, they're quickly surprised by how darn hard it is. How exhausting it can be, what it costs. This is true of family life. What a false romanticized version of marriage and family so many of our young people get, so that when they climb into a real marriage where love is forged and built, they say it's too hard. Because they've got this vision that somehow love is all consolation. But if we're really going to live a cultural encounter, we need to just know, and you know from your experience, and we need to remember that we're stepping into suffering. Because that's what love looks like in a fallen world. Christ's love looked like this. Now don't get me wrong, love is joy, love is peace, love is complete contentment in Christ, but it comes at a cost. I love these words from Benedict XVI. I'd like to turn to the last quote. This is from his encyclical Spe Salve, Hope Saves. He says, love simply cannot exist without the painful renunciation of self. For otherwise it becomes pure selfishness and thereby ceases to be love. To suffer with the other and for others. To suffer for the sake of truth and justice. To suffer out of love and in order to become a person who truly loves. These are the fundamental elements of humanity. It's when we attempt to avoid suffering by withdrawing from anything that might involve hurt, when we try to spare ourselves the effort of pain and of pursuing truth, love, and goodness, that we drift into a life of emptiness in which there may be almost no pain for the dark sensation of meaninglessness. End quote. Circle back to the beginning. How many people live lives comfortable but isolated from human relationship? And while you wouldn't say they're uncomfortable, you wouldn't call them happy either. Love suffers, but it's only by that suffering love that we actually attain our happiness. When Christ stares at the cross, when he has the cup in the garden, and he's talking to his Father in heaven, and he sees the suffering in its fullness, such unto sweating of blood, he says to his Father, Lord, take this cup from me if you will, but if not, your will be done. The redemption of the whole human race, everything we're talking about, the reign of the kingdom of justice that we dream of, is the product of our Lord loving under the point of ultimate suffering. And that's what we're writing to. We need to see that. But at the end of that road is joy. The end of that road is true happiness. The end of that road is a life full of meaning. The end of that life is full of relationships that matter. But the end of that road is a life where the kingdom is breaking through. It isn't comfort, but it's true joy, the joy of the gospel. Amen.